how to introduce new things such as toys to your lovemaking. Hey there, this video is yet another request from a viewer, and this one also comes from a female viewer. And she was wondering how she could introduce things like toys or role play, that sort of thing, into her lovemaking without potentially offending her man. Now, what I'm going to talk about in this video works for both men or women. So if you're a man wanting to introduce some new things into the bedroom, or you're a woman wanting to introduce some new things to the bedroom, either way, I think these tips will be helpful. But before I do that, please make sure that you like, share, and subscribe to the channel. Doing so greatly helps me get this information out to those who would like this kind of information. So when you like a video, when you share it, when you subscribe to the channel, that tells the YouTube algorithms that people are interested in this content. And I know that they're interested because I hear it from them. They want more of this stuff. But the big limiting factor has been the algorithm. Hey everybody, I'm Kevin Anthony, Certified Sexologist, Tantra Counselor, NLP Practitioner, and Sex, Love, and Relationship Coach. And I have been helping men, women, and couples have the relationship of their dreams and the best sex of their lives for over a decade. Okay, so here we go. Number one, your relationship should have some sort of an agreement that you'll both try almost anything at least once. I think this is a sign of a really healthy relationship. Relationships, like everything else in life, are either growing or dying. There's really no sort of in between. In other words, your relationship is either developing, it's getting stronger, it's getting better as you go through life, you experience more things, both the ups and the downs, right? So you should be deepening your love, potentially increasing or deepening your love making. If you're not always in some way deepening the relationship, then that means it's probably going backwards the other way, right? But why do I bring that up? Well, because one of the ways that you can continue to do that is to try new things. And one of the big problems I see with relationships is they get stagnant. They just get stuck. It's like we decided this is how the relationship's going to be, and then it's just going to be like that forever. And eventually, most people will get tired of that. There are some people that are content, but those relationships generally also aren't particularly exciting or fulfilling. They may be okay, but they're not the kind of relationship that you hear the person talking about, oh my God, that my relationship, my partner, my whatever, this is amazing, right? So the ones that you do hear that from, that, oh, this is amazing, and our love just keeps getting deeper, and our lovemaking keeps getting better, and all that, those are generally the relationships that are willing to try new things and keep things progressing in a forward direction. So as part of that, you should have some sort of an agreement that say, hey, look, from time to time, I might come up with a crazy idea. You might come up with a crazy idea. Can we have an agreement that as long as the idea isn't something where somebody could potentially be harmed or hurt, right? Or something that's, illegal or, somehow particularly dangerous, right? As long as it's not something like that, that you're willing and open to try it. This signals to your partner that you are willing to do the work to have that relationship of your dreams and the best sex of your life. And I know Celine and I had that agreement. We absolutely had that agreement where we said we will try anything at least once. Meaning that, anything in the realm of sexuality, if one of us brought it to the other one and it's like, hey, I want to try this, even if it's not necessarily our thing, I'm like, okay, well, you want to do that thing. It's not necessarily my thing, but I'm willing to give it a go. Let's see how it works, right? Now, after you do it, you get to have that conversation again later about, well, let me tell you how I felt about it, or what worked for me and what didn't work for me, right? And then you can have that negotiation as to whether or not you want to do it again. But what that also does is it helps you get over the hurdle. Because if you want to come in, let's say, and introduce role play into the bedroom, and you're like, hey, I would like to role play, and here's the fantasy I have, and the other person's like rolling their eyes, like, role play, like, I don't really want to do this, right? If they're at least open to it, and you try it once, then they get to say, okay, I tried it, and I can tell you that wigged me out. I didn't like it. I don't want to do it. Or they might go, I never thought that I would actually enjoy that, but it was really a lot of fun. And the thing is when you're pitching an idea to somebody with the idea that, once we do it once, that means we're going to have to keep doing it, which is not something that's really ever said, but something that's sometimes implied, right? Like, hey, honey, I want to do this in the bedroom. And then they're like, I don't really want to do that. And if I do that, then he or she's going to want more of that. And they're going to think that, this is okay to do all the time. And no, I don't want that. As opposed to having this agreement, I'm willing to try it once, right? They're going to be a whole lot more likely to jump into something that they might be hesitant to do if they know that it's just an experiment and they only have to try it one time and then they get to make a decision, right? So I think that is a great way to start, is to sit down and have that conversation and get them to agree that, hey, outside of something really crazy, I'm willing to try it if it's something that you really want. But then I always have the right to say, hey, I didn't like that and I don't want to do it again. Okay, number 2. This one is really important. They're all really important, but this one is really important. And that is, you have to reassure your partner that the thing that you're asking for isn't because the sex isn't good. For instance, when you want to bring toys into the bedroom, a lot of times a woman will want to bring a toy in for various reasons. And she might say, hey, I would really like it if you could use this vibrator when we're making love. A lot of times men will go, well, what do you need a vibrator for? Am I not good enough? Do I not, satisfy you, right? And they'll kind of take it personally that, there's something wrong with them or the way that they perform in the bedroom. And so letting your partner know that this isn't because the sex isn't good. This isn't because I don't like the way we make love. This isn't because you're not performing. I just want to see what else is possible. I want to see what other levels we can go to. I want to just do something different to spice it up a little bit, right? And be playful. Like, just let's have fun with it. It's not any sort of commentary on your performance in the bedroom. And that brings me to number 3, which is really similar, which is that you really want to make sure that your partner understands that this is supposed to be something that adds to the relationship or the sex, right? And not something that takes away. And that's why I'm making this a little bit of a distinction, because sometimes people can think, as I talked about in the previous one, that, you must be saying that I'm not able to satisfy you and that's why you need this toy in order to get off. Okay, that's part of it. And, you want to make sure they understand that's not the case. But in this case, there's also sometimes a fear that, if we introduce this thing into, somehow it's going to take away from my pleasure, my enjoyment, right? So, a man might be thinking, hey, if we introduce vibrators, you're not going to want as much penetration, and therefore somehow I'm going to lose out. And that can really cause people to be hesitant to introduce new things into the bedroom. So what you want to do is make sure that you assure them that this isn't to replace something that we're doing. This isn't to take away from our lovemaking. It's to add something to it. Okay, and number 4. Sometimes partners are hesitant to try new things because in their mind, the new things are somehow weird or strange, or why would anybody want to do that? And I think a lot of that comes from the fact that because people don't talk a lot about sex, because, YouTube doesn't show these videos of mine to enough people, people don't really understand what is normal, right? Like the perfect example is, most men think that their penis is too small. Well, if they were to just go out to a nude beach or, any place where they can see a lot of, regular men naked, they would see that they're probably perfectly fine and probably right in the middle of the normal range, bigger than some, maybe smaller than others, right? but they don't necessarily know that because they don't have exposure to that. And the same thing is true when it comes to different things in the bedroom. Because a lot of people haven't had exposure to things, like for some people, just introducing a vibrator might be like, whoa, 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 that's a little too much, right? Because they have some misconception in their mind that this is some weirdo thing that only strange people do, and what if somebody found out? Well, given the fact that the sex toy industry is a multi-billion-dollar industry, I can assure you that almost any toy is commonly used by a lot of people, and a lot of people from every background of life that you can think of. And I do this work, and myself and Celine, we made it a point to want to bring this work to just regular people. We weren't going after any special niche of people who are really into sex. No, we wanted to help, and I still want to help regular people have great relationships and a fulfilling sex life. And I can tell you that I work with a lot of those people, and things like toys and sex swings and vibrators and dildos and butt plugs and whatever, it's all normal. Lots of people use these things. And so if your partner has any fear about what is it going to mean if we start doing this, it's really helpful to assure them that this is normal. These things are normal. Lots of people use them. There's nothing wrong with it. That brings me to number 5. Number 5 is, before you embark on any experiments with introducing anything new to the bedroom, have an agreement with your partner that either one of you at any time can call a timeout, right? And that's really important. If you want to introduce something new into the bedroom and your partner's like, I'm not so sure about this, right? They will be much more likely to engage and to go along with it if they know that, hey, all right, I'm willing to try it, and if at any moment I don't like it, I need to be able to say, can we stop, right? That is really, really important. So that's just another thing that you can have a discussion about beforehand, right? Hey, can we at least try it once? There's no obligation to ever do it again. If at any point in the process you're like, this isn't working for me, just speak up and we can stop. All right, and number 7 is, remember that this is about fun and pleasure. That's what it's supposed to be about, right? So, be open and willing to experiment, have all the agreements that we talked about, and just remember that it's supposed to be about fun. You're supposed to have fun with this, and you're supposed to increase the pleasure for both of you. So, if this is not something that is going to be fun, if it's going to be too stressful, if it's going to cause any sort of, disagreements or arguments between you, then it's really not worth it, in my opinion. But I do think that if you really keep an open mind to it and you have the agreements in place, that you can pretty much almost always make it fun. And that's my suggestion, is really to just have fun with it. All right, number 8. So I mentioned this before, but I want to make sure that I reiterate it and make it its whole own point, which is part of this process of introducing new things in isn't just about talking about it beforehand and then doing it. That's good. You want to talk about it beforehand. You want to have those agreements that I talked about. Then you want to experiment. And then the next part is making sure that afterwards you have a check-in. How was that for you? Did you like it? Did you like parts of it, but maybe not other parts of it, right? So you really want to check in and see how it was for your partner. That will really sort of help you gauge where they're at and what they're into and what they're not into. And sometimes, if you don't have that conversation and you just say, well, did you like it? Would you do it again? They might say, no. And then you're like, all disappointed, and you don't know why. Whereas if you sit down and say, hey, let's talk about it. What worked for you? What didn't work for you? Is there anything you'd like to change? Is there something that would make it better for you? Right? Something that we could add, something that we could leave out? Because you might find that they say, well, I was kind of liking it, but the position that we had to do it in just made it so uncomfortable that I just didn't like it. And then you go, oh, it's just the position? Okay, great. We can fix that, right? So really having that discussion, and that also lets your partner know that you are concerned and that you care about their experience in all this. And it's not just about you getting what you want, right? So if you're asking your partner to try something and they're kind of on the fence about it, but they're willing and they go along with it, having that sort of aftercare and saying, well, how was it for you? Did you like it? Would you be willing to do it again? Is there anything you want to change? Lets them know that you are genuinely concerned about how the experience was for them and that you are willing to make any changes or adjustments that they might need. Okay, and this leads me to number 9, which is to have a really clear agreement about whether or not you are going to try this again. Now, I've kind of talked about that a little bit through a lot of the other things, through, having the agreements and, the aftercare, right? And number 8. However, one of the things that I've seen, and the reason why I made this its whole own item here, is because I've seen people have these conversations and they have the talk, but then they kind of leave that last piece sort of open-ended, right? So it'll be like, hey, I want to talk to you about that experience. How was it for you? And did you like it? And then you guys have that conversation, and then that's it. And then it's kind of left just hanging out there in the air. Does he or she want me to do this again? Do I want, him or her to do this again? And it's not necessarily clear. And so the person who wants to try it again might not know how to approach it. And then, of course, if you don't bring it up, they might then start thinking, well, I guess maybe they didn't really like it because they haven't said anything about it again. And it just clears all of that up if at the end of that conversation, you can just say, hey, I'm so glad that we tried that. And I'm so glad that you shared with me what you liked and what you didn't like. The last thing is would you be willing to do it again? Right? And then you just get to say, yes, I would be willing to do it again. And you might even say, it's not something I want to do every time. It's probably not something I want to do the next time we make love, but I would be willing to do it again at some point in the future. Why don't we check in about it again, in a few weeks or whatever. But you get to have that conversation. That way everything is really clear and it's not left hanging out there. And then, one person's like, I really want to do this again. When can we do this again? And he or she's not mentioning it. And then, this is how resentments build up, right? So we want to avoid that by simply clearly coming to an agreement as to whether or not we are going to try this again. All right, there you go. Those are 9 ways that you can introduce new things into the bedroom. If you like my content and you want to know where you can find more from me, please go to kevinanthonycoaching.com/link in bio. From there are links to everything else that I do, from my podcast to this YouTube channel, to media appearances that I've been on, my coaching programs, my men's sexual mastery programs, great products, blogs, and more. It's all right there at kevinanthonycoaching.com/link in bio.